Well, after such a great introduction, I can't wait to hear the speaker myself. First of all, I have a confession to make. Sometimes these honors can backfire. Recently, New York Magazine voted me as one of the 100 smartest people in New York. I thought, wow, what a great honor. However, in all fairness, I have to admit that Madonna also made that same list. And next year, they tell me that Lady Gaga is going to push me off the list entirely. Now, today, I'm going to talk about the future, the next 20 years, as told to me by over 400 of the world's top scientists that I've interviewed for BBC Television, the Discovery Channel, the Science Channel. But predicting the future is dangerous. Let me quote from that great philosopher of the Western world, Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra once said, quote, "Prediction is awfully hard to do, especially if it's about the future." And Yogi Berra also once said, "If you encounter a fork in the road to the future, then be sure to take it." Well, sometimes people come up to me and say, "Professor, what has quantum physics done for me lately?" Huh? Well, we quantum physicists invented the laser. We invented the transistor. We helped to assemble the computer. We wrote the World Wide Web. And along the way, we also invented television. We invented radio, radar. In the hospital, we invented the X-ray machine, the MRI machine. And don't forget, we also created the space program and the GPS satellites. And we physicists love to make predictions. When we helped to assemble the internet, one physicist predicted that the internet would become a forum of high culture, high art, and high society. Well, today we know that 5% of the internet is pornography. But that's because teenage boys log on to the internet. Just wait until the grandmas and grandpas log on to the internet. Then 50% of the internet will be pornography. Now, before I give you a guided tour of the next 20 years, let me tell you a cautionary story about another physicist. Over 200 years ago, we had the Great French Revolution. And one day, there were three gentlemen about to have their heads chopped off at the guillotine. There was a priest, a lawyer, and a theoretical physicist, just like me, about to lose our head. Well, they put the priest's head on the guillotine, and they asked him, "Do you have any last words before we slice your head off?" And the priest said, "Yes." He said, "Yes." He said, God from above shall certainly set me free." Well, all eyes were on the blade. They raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and it stopped right before it hit the neck of the priest. The crowd gasped. They had never seen this before. And they shouted, "Let the priest go. God has spoken today." And now let's see about the lawyer. Yes, the lawyer. They put the lawyer's head on the chopping block. And they asked him, "Do you have any last words?" And he said, "Yes, yes." He said, "Maybe the spirit of justice. Yes, justice shall set me free." Well, all eyes were on the blade. They raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and it stopped right before it hit the neck of the lawyer. This time, there was dancing in the streets of Paris. People were shouting, "Today, God has spoken. Justice and mercy have spoken." And now let's see about that theoretical physicist. Well, they put the physicist's head on the chopping block, and they asked him, "Do you have any last words?" And he said, Yeah, I got some last words. And he said, "I don't know too much about God, and I know even less about the law, but I do know one thing. If you look up, you'll see that the rope is stuck on the pulley. And then he said, if you remove the rope, the blade should come down real good. Big mistake. Big mistake. Well, the rope came down, the blade came down, and the poor physicist's head came down. And it just goes to show you that sometimes we physicists have to know when to keep our mouths shut. But nonetheless, let me talk about the future. I've written 3 New York Times bestsellers. Physics of the Future takes you 100 years into the future. And that book answers the question of all questions. Is there intelligent life on the earth? And the answer is no. Have you seen the presidential debates lately? In this book, Physics of the Impossible, I go 500 years into the future, when we might have starships, teleportation, perhaps even time machines. And I answer the question, what happens if you go into a time machine and you meet your teenage mother before you're born and she falls in love with you? Well, if your teenage mother falls in love with you before you're born, you're in deep doo-doo if that happens. My latest book, also a New York Times bestseller, hit #1, by the way, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list last year. The Future of the Mind. Did you know that sitting on your shoulders is the most complex object in the known universe? To duplicate it would require a computer the size of a city block. And yet your brain only uses 20 watts of power. So when someone calls you a dim bulb, that's a compliment. And afterwards, after my lecture, I will be signing copies of the book. And afterwards, you can go to eBay and auction them off for money. Yes, signed books are worth more money. But today, let's talk about wealth. You know, I do a lot of traveling. Last month, I was in Singapore and Mexico. Next month, I'll be in Moscow, I'll be in Milan, and possibly Turkey. And everywhere I go, I ask myself a simple question. Why are some nations rich? Rich beyond imagination. And why are some nations dirt poor, with starvation and despotism and depression? Why are some nations rich and poor? Well, where does wealth come from anyway? Well, if you talk to a politician, wealth comes from taxes. But that can't be true, because taxes simply rearrange wealth. You see, politicians are former lawyers. And in law, you sue Peter to pay Paul. It's a zero-sum game. You sue Peter to pay Paul. That's called the law. When a lawyer becomes a politician, he taxes Peter to pay Paul. So taxes cannot be the origin of wealth. So where does the wealth come from? It comes from workers, it comes from entrepreneurs, yes, yes, yes. But ultimately, it comes from science and technology. So let's go backwards in time, 200 years, and then let's leap into the future. 200 years ago, if you were to visit Minnesota, you would see a lot of chickens, cows, farms, and mud. 200 years ago, high-speed travel was getting stuck in the mud with a horse, if you could afford a horse. Long-distance communication was yelling out the window. What happened? What happened was science happened. We physicists worked out the thermodynamics of steam power, and that created locomotives. All of a sudden, we had machines that could make textiles. All of a sudden, the Industrial Revolution lifted wretched humanity from the depths of poverty, ignorance, and disease. It created so much wealth, excess wealth, it even created a bubble, a huge bubble the likes of which had never been seen before. The bubble went into railroad stocks in London, creating the crash of 1850 when the bubble popped. The reaction to that huge depression was so great that it even created a counter-philosophy called Marxism. Well, 80 years later, we physicists unleashed the second wave of innovation and wealth. Electricity, magnetism, the light bulb, the internal combustion engine. And that created an even bigger bubble of wealth and prosperity in utility stocks and automobile stocks. It was unsustainable. It popped in 1929, giving us the Great Depression and World War II. 80 years later, we physicists unleashed the third wave of innovation and wealth. High technology, lasers, computers, the internet, GPS system, all of it from the mind of a physicist. And it created a huge bubble of wealth. In America, that bubble of wealth went into real estate, and it popped in 2008. In Europe, that bubble, much of it went into maintaining the Greek Mediterranean lifestyle. That is also unsustainable. It popped last month. In Asia, it created a bubble in Beijing real estate, and it popped 2 weeks ago. So the question today is, what is the fourth wave? The first wave was steam power. The second wave of wealth and prosperity was electricity. The third wave was high technology, all of it unleashed by physicists. What is the fourth wave of wealth generation? It's going to be at the molecular level, nanotech, biotech, and artificial intelligence. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Your future. The job market, the wealth of nations, all of it from the minds of scientists. So let's say a few things about Moore's Law. This is perhaps the most important law in modern history, and most people never heard of it. Moore's Law simply says that computer power doubles every 18 months. Look at the year 1945. Today, when you get a birthday card in the mail, there's a chip in it. When you open it up, it sings to you, sings happy birthday to you. That chip that you throw in the garbage has more computer power than all the Allied forces of 1945. Stalin, Hitler, Churchill, Roosevelt would have killed to get that chip that you throw in the garbage. And now look at 1969. Ever see those old NASA videotapes of putting men on the moon? Mission Control in NASA used 64K processors. You realize that your cell phone has more computer power than all of NASA in 1969? In fact, they were shooting people into outer space backed up by one cell phone. You're not going to put me in one of these rocket ships. You're not going to send me into a tin can backed up by one cell phone. It's criminal. It's criminal what we were doing in 1969. And now look at 2020, 2025. You now know the future. Computer chips will cost a penny. That's the cost of scrap paper and garbage. Garbage will cost more than intelligence. Intelligence will be everywhere and nowhere. Where's electricity today? Electricity is everywhere and nowhere. It's under your feet, it's in the walls, in the ceiling. In fact, the word electricity has disappeared from the English language. Same thing with computers. The word computer will disappear from the English language when it costs a penny a piece. The internet will be everywhere and nowhere, including your glasses. These glasses are more powerful than Google glasses. They actually recognize people's faces. How many times have you been at a conference like this and you bump into somebody and you say to yourself, I know this person. Jim, John, Jake, I know this person. In the future, your glasses will say, it's Jim, stupid. Here's his complete biography. You see him every year at the Futurist Conference. And then tonight, you're at a cocktail party. And there's some very important people at that cocktail party, but you don't know who they are. In the future, you will know exactly who to suck up to at any cocktail party. And if they speak Chinese to you, it'll translate Chinese into English and put subtitles underneath their image. You will see subtitles of people talking to you in Greek, Chinese, Italian, whatever. Now today we have Google glasses, which are used by surgeons, professionals, blueprints, X-ray diagrams, MRI scans, even as you perform an operation. can be displayed right in your Google Glasses. Many ways to do it. You can shoot it right to the retina of your eye, or use the screen as the lens as a screen, or an eyepiece. 3 ways to do it. In fact, this is the future of your home office, your home entertainment center. But there's a problem. There's a big problem. Let's say you don't wear glasses. Let's say you don't like glasses. Then, what are you going to do? In the future, you will blink, and you will be online. And who were the first people to buy internet contact lenses? College students taking final examinations. They will blink and see all the answers to my final exam right there in their contact lens. Who's the next person to buy internet contact lenses? Politicians, actors and actresses. They'll see the scripts right there in front of their eye. And tourists will love these internet contact lenses because if you're walking through the streets of Rome, you can't see much of the Roman Empire anymore. It's all gone. But in the future, when you walk through the ruins of the Forum, you'll see the entire Roman Empire resurrected in your contact lens as you walk through the ruins of Rome. And you'll go to the bazaar, and you'll be able to haggle with the merchants in any language you want because your contact lens will translate into English. Now, you've seen this before. This is called augmented reality. When everywhere you look, you'll see a description. You'll see blueprints. You'll see diagrams, descriptions of anything you are looking at. You'll be able to understand what people tell you. You'll be able to understand what you are looking at. And augmented reality was first introduced in a Hollywood movie. What Hollywood movie first introduced augmented reality? Well, here's the former governor of California in a very bad mood. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie Terminator that first introduced augmented reality. That when the Terminator robot sees a victim, you see a complete biography of that person. Now, you may say to yourself, well, isn't this science fiction? I mean, the Library of Congress inside your contact lens? No, it already exists. Welcome to the future. This is the United States Army. I flew down to Fort Benning, Georgia, my old alma mater. That's where I graduated from during the Vietnam War. And I took a film crew from BBC television. We had a demonstration of Land Warrior. Land Warrior is this big. It's ½ an inch tall. You stick it onto your helmet, you flick it over your eye, and boom, you're on the internet. The internet of the battlefield. Enemy forces, friendly forces, artillery, armor, aircraft, all of it just by blinking. This is how we will access information everywhere and nowhere. And this means that the society itself will gradually become digitalized. This is the future of money. This is how we will buy things in the future. You'll simply point your cell phone, click, and you bought it. Point and click. That's how you will buy things in the future. And even beyond that, you'll simply blink. And eventually, as I show later, we're going to connect the human mind directly to a computer. How will you purchase things in the future? You'll simply think, and you will buy it. This is the digitalization of life. This is the cell phone of the future. Today, if you have fat fingers and you try to type on your little inky-dinky cell phone, forget it. This is the cell phone of the future. E-paper, intelligent paper. You simply scroll out as much intelligent paper as you want and have a keyboard and screen as big as you want and fold it up afterwards into your cell phone. In fact, we can make yards of the stuff. This is the future of wallpaper. This is how you will relax. This is what you will decorate your home with. Today, if your wallpaper is old, ratty looking, torn, discolored, what do? You suffer. That's what you do. In the future, you simply talk to the wall and say, please change color. And this is the future of medicine. Let's say it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you feel a pain in your stomach. Is it a heart attack, or is it the pizza you had last night? What are you going to do? You go to the wall and say, mirror, mirror on the wall, I want to talk to a doctor right now. Boom! RoboDoc appears in your wallpaper. RoboDoc is artificially intelligent, compliments of IBM, answers any and all medical questions with near 100% accuracy. This is going to revolutionize the cost of medical care. You'll simply talk to the wall, and you will have what are called expert systems giving you information almost for free. This will not replace doctors. You still need doctors for surgery, for consultation, things like that. But everyday garden variety things will be done in your wallpaper. Let's say you're in a car accident, and you got to talk to a lawyer real fast. What do? You talk to your wristwatch and talk to RoboLawyer. RoboLawyer is right there in your wristwatch, accessing all the legal literature, speaking plain English, talking about liability, what to do, how to call the ambulance, how to get medical care, and how to get sound legal advice. This is the future of artificial intelligence inside your wristwatch. And what about the digitalization of capitalism? Well, the first industry to be digitalized was music, with horrible consequences. The music industry said, ha, people will always buy music the old-fashioned way. Wrong. You know who controls the music industry today? Take a guess. Who controls the music industry today? It's Apple computers through iTunes. What's the lesson here? The lesson here is that you are free to ignore everything I've been telling you. You are also free to go bankrupt. Well, music was first. What's next? Now it's media. Radio, television, all of that is being digitalized. You know, the New York Times, over a decade ago, bought the Boston Globe for about $1 billion. Many people thought it was a great purchase. Well, the New York Times, a few months ago, sold the Boston Globe for 10% of what it paid for. It was a $1 billion loss. What's the lesson here? The lesson here is don't bet against technology. Be a surfer. Ride the wave of technology. See the wave coming. Get on the wave. Ride the wave. If you go against the wave of technology, you will wipe out and lose $1 billion. And then the question of what is next? Music was first. Today, it's media. In the future, it'll be transportation, medicine, and education. Let's talk about them one at a time. First of all, this is your living room of the future. You'll be surrounded by intelligent wallpaper, and you'll be right on the 50-yard line during the Super Bowl, right on the 50-yard line as the football goes right over your head. This is also the future of your love life. Let's say you're a college student on an American campus, and it's Friday night, and you have no date. What do? We all know what you do. You get stone drunk. Well, in the future, you go to the wall and say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's available tonight? Boom, 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 boom. All the pictures of all the people who are also staring at their wallpaper, wondering, what am I going to do tonight, will appear. And you'll go out to a nice dinner. That's not going to change. We have to eat in the future. And then late at night, you'll say, my date and I wanted to see an old-fashioned movie like Casablanca, except remove Humphrey Bogart's face and put my face instead. This is also the future of Christmas. In the future, chips are going to be placed in toys, making them intelligent. This is creating a problem for the English language. We have a contradiction in terms called smart Barbie dolls. Another contradiction in terms is Microsoft Works. This is the future of television. Television, 3D TV without glasses. This has been the holy grail of television for 50 years, and now we can do it for the first time. The key is the screen. Throw away your glasses. The screen consists of thousands of vertical lines. Each vertical line is a prism which cuts the image in half. One half goes to the left eye, one half goes to the right eye, and bingo, 3D without glasses. It is now commercially available in experimental video games. Watch for it in about 5 years in your living room. And this is the future of shopping. Today, if you're looking for a wedding dress, you go shopping and you found the perfect wedding dress. Right shape, right color, right everything, but wrong size. What happens today? No sale. But see, in the future, the cloud knows your exact 3D measurements. And you'll simply upload your measurements to the cloud, and the cloud will punch out exactly what you want. This is called mass customization rather than mass production. Mass production, of course, was introduced by Henry Ford. Henry Ford was famous for saying, quote, "The American people can have any color car they want as long as it's black." And this is the future of printing. You'll be able to print out Christmas presents. You'll download the Christmas present of the future, punch it out on your laser printer. Machine parts can now be printed out. Heart tissue can now be printed out using laser printers. This is the future of your cubicle. 3D, wraparound, flexible. Your cubicle will be so beautiful, you will never get any work done in the future. This is the future of education. Your students today sometimes play hooky. Remember the old days when we played hooky? Those days are gone. In the future, every child will have a surrogate with their picture in it, closed-circuit TV with their picture in it, sitting in your chair when you're sick. When you're sick, your surrogate will sit in your chair with your face in it. Isn't the future wonderful? You will never, ever play hooky ever again in the future. Cars, of course, can already drive themselves. Car of the future uses GPS, and it can drive all by itself. So cars will drive themselves. As you walk, as you drive, you'll seamlessly understand everything you are looking at. This is the future of jet travel. NASA says by 2025, we want to have prototypes of jetliners that are supersonic without a sonic boom. Welcome to the future. This is how you will ride in a jet plane starting after 2025. Supersonic jets without a sonic boom. So what is it leading up to? It's leading up to something called perfect capitalism. Capitalism is the laws of supply and demand, but they are imperfect. You will have perfect knowledge of what you are purchasing, and if you are the vendor, you'll have perfect knowledge due to data mining and due to data mining and big data, targeted marketing, and also branding. But there are winners and losers. The big loser in all of this is the middleman. You know, today, for example, stockbrokers no longer sell stock. Now, you may say to yourself, that's kind of stupid. Everybody knows stockbrokers sell stock. But you see, most people buy stock on the internet now, just like Uber. Uber eliminates the middleman. So what do stockbrokers sell? In order to survive, stockbrokers sell what computers cannot give you, and that is intellectual capital, experience, know-how, intuition, innovation, talent, leadership. That's the wave of the future. Intellectual capital, not commodity capital. Let me just say a few things about medicine, and then we'll have the video in a second. This is how we will do diagnostics in the future. It is an aspirin pill that you swallow. You put a TV camera inside with a computer chip and a magnet. The magnet guides the computer into the stomach, taking gorgeous pictures of your inside. Because we all know what middle-aged men fear the most. Middle-aged men fear the C word, colonoscopy. That's when they stick that tube up your rear. But this gives new meaning for the expression Intel inside. This is also the future of cancer research. Today, if you have a lump in your breast and it's cancerous, you are on the operating table, no ifs, ands, or buts. You have 10 billion cancer cells growing in your breast. Surgery is required immediately. In the future, your toilet will be intelligent. And your toilet will tell you that you have 100 cancer cells growing in your breast. Do something. You have 10 years to get rid of it. Well, now let's have the video. And in the video, we will see that we will even grow organs of the body. We will grow organs of the body like ears, shown here. This is an ear. This is bone, cartilage, noses. Bladders can be grown. Whole windpipes can be grown in the lab. The next organ to be grown in the laboratory is the liver. So for all you alcoholics in the audience, take heart. We will grow an artificial liver. Let's have the video now, and we will see how heart tissue can be grown in the hospital of the future.
In a world where machines interact like people and bodies can be rebuilt from scratch, how will we wage war, fuel our need for power, commute to space? What life-saving innovations will be possible in the next 50 years?
Flying ambulances and intelligent clothing. Brain chips cure paralysis. Vital organs printed to order.
See how scientists today are making visions of tomorrow real. Physicist and futurist Michio Kaku will guide you through the medical breakthroughs that will change your life. The future is closer than you think.
It all starts now with the body.
50 years from now, you'll live in an intelligent house. You can program sensors to monitor your body and keep you healthy, yet guard your privacy.
Caution, alcohol level.
Because any information you reveal could come back to haunt you.
Let's keep this between us.
Computer chips connect you to the entire city, including your insurance company. The good news is you'll live a lot longer because an agent gives you a remote physical every 3 days. The bad news? You'll have no secrets.
Wait, mucous membrane of the mouth. Send health memo immediately.
Bonjour, Monsieur Degas. Here are a few more tips for your dental care. Brush your teeth regularly using the ultrasound toothbrush.
Which will give away the fact that Alan was partying last night and his premiums will go up as a result.
Thanks for your attention.
You must be joking. Get the car, please.
Alan's clothing looks quite ordinary, but that's deceptive because woven inside the fabric are dozens of tiny computer chips and sensors monitoring his health. When he puts on his clothing, he goes online. Now get this. If he's ever knocked unconscious, his clothes will automatically identify his coordinates, alert the authorities, and upload his entire medical history before the ambulance arrives. In the future, you will have a doctor in your clothing.
When you have a severe accident, brain cells can die within 6 minutes. The ambulance of tomorrow will not only reach you in time, it will carry a medical revolution that can save your life.
Patient data registered. Alan Degas. Platinum class confirmed. Loss of blood, 35%. I suggest reversible death.
Okay.
After a severe accident or heart attack, every second brings us closer to death. So wouldn't it be great if one day we could somehow stop the clock? In the future, EMT crews could use a technique called reversible death or suspended animation. They will replace your blood with an ice-cold saline solution, dropping your body temperature to below 50 degrees Fahrenheit. At that point, brain and heart activity come to a halt. And that's not the only blood substitute that one day could save your life.
50 years from now, we'll have cures for trauma victims that would seem like miracles today.
Your left thigh's been fractured and your hip is dislocated. 2 ribs and a second lumbar vertebra are also fractured, but you have a bigger problem. Your artificial heart has fissures.
You're gonna open me up?
You need a new heart. The print's already in progress. It'll only take another 20 hours.
Iris scan identified. Marie Balzac. Status, cleared for security zone. Have a nice evening.
In this high-security area, gene specialists have processed the patient's tissue sample. Now they are using it to print a heart.
If your car gets banged up because you're in a car accident, what do? You go to the body shop and get a new door or fender. But if you happen to be in that same accident, you could die. Now, consider this. In the United States alone, there are 91,000 patients waiting for an organ transplant. And of them, 18 die every day for an organ that never comes. What we need is a human body shop. And in 50 years' time, tissue engineering could change everything.
A child today with a defective heart valve has limited options. Valves from animals don't last long, and artificial valves can cause clots. Stephen Yuckenheuvel wants to avoid these problems by implanting the world's first heart valve grown exclusively from the body's own tissue. Within an hour, he has the rough form of a heart valve, which he places in a bioreactor. Next, he adds nutrients and cells which normally line heart valve walls. The cells latch onto the structure and start to grow. Within just 3 weeks, a complete heart valve has formed. Finally, a pump exercises the valve to strengthen its walls so it can withstand the high pressures in a human heart.
Patient hypotherm.
During surgery, doctors won't have to touch the patient.
Body temperature 46 degrees. Blood completely replaced with plasma solution.
Instead, surgeons will manipulate a 3D model of the body. These virtual images will revolutionize surgery in the next decades. With a click, doctors can switch from a scalpel to a saw. They open the thorax virtually, while robotic arms perform the actual incisions.
Are all the main arteries blocked?
Yes, you can remove the organ.
Now, in closing, let me just say a few things about myself. When I was a child, I had a role model. My role model was Albert Einstein. And my favorite Einstein story is this. When Einstein was an old man, he was tired of giving the same talk over and over again. So one day his chauffeur came up to him, and the chauffeur said, "Professor, I'm really a part-time actor. I've heard your speech so many times, I've memorized it. So why don't we switch places? I will put on a mustache, I will put on a wig, I will be the great Einstein. You can put on my jacket and be my chauffeur." Well, Einstein loved the joke, so they switched places. This went along famously until one day, a mathematician in the back asked a very difficult question. And Einstein thought, oh, the game is up. But then the chauffeur said, "That question is so elementary that even my chauffeur here can answer it for you." Thank you very much. You've been a great audience, and we'll now take questions and answers from you, the audience.
Welcome. Good to have you here. And I think I misspoke on the hashtag, on the Twitter hashtag. It's MPLS100. Apparently, many of you have my Twitter handle because I've been hearing from you, and that's great. It's @CarrieMPR for questions and comments. You talked about the access to knowledge, and that we're going to have access at our fingertips to knowledge that it's actually kind of hard to imagine today. Is that the time when the idea of knowledge and wisdom gets devalued because we all have it?
No, because the computer simply makes knowledge and facts available. But how you sift through it and come up with principles, how you come up with fundamental ideas, that requires thought. And so the difference between a scientist and simply an experimenter is that a real scientist takes the raw data and comes up with a principle, a theory that explains this mass of data. And that's where education is going to have to go in a different direction. We don't want to flood our kids with useless information. In the future, when you want to see the periodic chart of elements, you simply blink, and it's right there in your contact lens. Why do we have to memorize the periodic chart when it's only a blink away? But how you use it, how you use the periodic chart of elements, that's what we're going to teach in the future.
What happens, though, if you can seem well-informed and smart on the surface because you have all this knowledge at your fingertips? What's the incentive to develop the kind of, I think you said innovation, genius, creativity that will be so highly valued?
See, the jobs of the future will be jobs that involve not commodity capital, not simply collecting data on coal, collecting data on rice and beans and pork bellies, but extracting from it principles, knowledge, and trends. That requires analysis. That means intellectual capital is going to be more important. For example, Tony Blair of England likes to say that England derives more revenue today from rock and roll than it does the coal mining industry. Because rock and roll is intellectual capital, while coal mining is simply collecting raw data and taking the coal from the ground. What do you do with it? You have to be creative. You have to innovate, create something new. And that's why the world economy is making the transition from commodity capital to intellectual capital. So who's going to be rich and who's going to be poor? Well, there are some nations which don't understand this, and they're wedded to agriculture. Today, you had breakfast that the King of England could not have had 100 years ago. Food is dirt cheap from around the world. The King of England could not have eaten what you had this morning. Well, the meaning of this is that nations which only invest in agriculture and commodities will see their economies turn to dust.
I'm also interested in how you think of what we will view genius as. I mean, you made a list of, what was it, 100 smartest people in New York. You're revered for your skills in taking information and turning and analyzing that and turning that into ideas. Is our concept of what genius is going to change?
I hope so, but I think that the essence of genius is that you initiate a paradigm shift that changes the entire landscape.
Well, what does that mean?
Now, sometimes I hear that, oh, this person's a comic genius, or that person's a business genius. But I say to myself, oh, wait a minute. Did he change the entire business landscape by being in it? That's what true genius does. It changes all our suppositions, our principles, our understanding. It's a game changer. It overturns the previous paradigm by initiating a new paradigm shift. That's why we say that Einstein was a genius, because before Einstein, we just had ordinary Newtonian mechanics, and he changed everything. He gave us the whole world of today, the world of space-time. And the same thing for business, the same thing for art. If you are a game changer, that you change the paradigm, that you shift our suppositions of what we consider art, what we consider music, then that is genius.
And will we develop more of that kind of genius, do you think, in the future, or less?
Well, you know, I do a lot of traveling, and in a lot of countries, they're trying to create Silicon Valley. For real. They're investing billions of dollars to create Silicon Valley. However, there's a problem. In Asia, for example, Singapore, where I just was last month, they're trying to create a Silicon Valley. But the problem is that in Asia, we have the expression that the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Now, if you're the future Bill Gates or the future Steve Jobs, and you're the nail that sticks out, you get hammered down. While in the West, we have the expression, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. which is the opposite of the paradigm in Asia. So if Asia wants to become a leader rather than a follower, it has to create the genius of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, which means you have to allow these iconoclasts and innovators to flourish rather than hammering the nail down.
One of the things that you talk about in your book, The Future of the Mind, is that as robots gain more intelligence and get more sophisticated, is that they will need to be programmed with fear. I thought that was really interesting. Why? Why, of all the qualities that we would need to put into robots, is that important?
Well, you see, I rank consciousness in 3 levels. First of all, there's the consciousness of alligators that only understand space. Then we have the intelligence of dogs, where we have a social hierarchy. That's where emotions start to come into play. Alligators, to the best of our knowledge, have no emotions. Alligators do not tell jokes. They don't laugh among themselves. But social animals do. Social animals have rudimentary emotions. We are beyond simply space of alligators and the social network of dogs and monkeys. We live in a different level, level 3 of consciousness, which is time. We see the future. Just do an experiment. Take your dog tonight and teach it the concept of tomorrow.
Okay.
And you'll realize you cannot. Now, robots are going to go through the same ranking, I think. Right now, they're at level 0, but eventually they'll go to the level of dogs, in which case fear is going to be important, and even pain. Pain is very important for us because it teaches us what to avoid for our own benefit. And once robots start to feel pain, there are going to be people that say that laws have to be passed to protect robots from excess pain, which means there could be a robots' rights movement. There could be a civil rights for a movement once robots can feel pain.
But why do we want robots to feel pain? Maybe they're more useful to us without those emotions.
When a child is born without pain, ultimately the fingers and legs have to be amputated because they do all sorts of dangerous things like pierce their nails through their fingers without noticing it. We know that hot things are dangerous, so we avoid them. They don't. So they wind up with burnt fingers, fingers with nails through them, horrible injuries to their legs and fingers. And so these are people who are born without the sense of pain. Eventually, robots are going to have a sense of pain, like emotions, which means that there will be a civil rights movement for robots to protect them from excess pain.
Okay, but I don't think we got quite to the question that I asked, which is, could it be that robots will be more useful to us without emotions, but with all of this utility?
No, because eventually we have to interact with them.
Okay.
Eventually we have to be able to put them in the house. Eventually they're going to have to understand when we're angry, understand human like body language, okay? Robots are going to have to understand body language because sometimes that is more important than simply what we say. When you're angry, your tone of voice and your expression, robots are going to have to read that, or else they're not going to know that their master is angry that day, for example.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was listening to what you said about intelligent medicine, and I just had a show about narrative medicine and how important it is that the story of the patient be front and center with your interaction with your health provider, with your physician. What you describe about looking into a mirror and saying, this is how I feel, what should I do, kind of removes that from the center of the interaction.
Yes and no. Artificial intelligence is at a very primitive level right now. Our most advanced robots do not have the common sense of a four-year-old child, for example. But step after step, we have to go from the first step to the second step. The first step is collecting evidence. The first step is collecting data. From that, we extract principles. And that's where stories come in. Because stories have a point. There is a point to a story. Otherwise, it's meaningless data. Once we understand the point, we say, aha, that's why you told that story. Robots are not at that level yet. They're only at the level of collecting data right now. But eventually, they'll be at the point where they can understand narrative and be able to reach a punchline. But that's decades away.
And then what do we need human doctors for again?
Oh, well, we still need human doctors because if you want to have surgery, there has to be a doctor that runs these machines. You saw how surgery will be done 50 years from now. It'll all be done with gigantic machines with tremendous precision, with a human that guides these things, because humans have to make judgment calls, because robots are very bad at pattern recognition. For example, they're not that good at face recognition, handwriting. They cannot recognize handwriting. They can't, pattern recognition is the reason why certain jobs will flourish in the future. Gardening and construction workers, policemen will have jobs in the future because they require pattern recognition, which robots cannot perform very well.
Question from the audience: what uses of tech in the future scare you?
Well, the big problem is privacy. You realize that, for example, viruses. Mother Nature has combated viruses for 3.5 billion years, and still Mother Nature has not conquered viruses. And nature has tried all sorts of ways to conquer viruses. And so it means that in the future, we are going to have problems with human nature multiplied by several billion. Human nature contains the urge to steal, the urge to eavesdrop, the urge to create mischief and create havoc. Yes, there's probably a gene up there for mischief and for creating havoc. And the internet simply magnifies pre-existing human behavior. So the internet did not create cyberbullies. Bullies were here already. Criminals were here already, except that the internet magnifies their capabilities by a few billion.
Do you believe that we carry, the people who take pleasure in, as you said, creating havoc, carry a genetic disposition
to that? Sad to say, but it was probably good for our evolution.
Why?
Because our ancestors had to take risks. Our ancestors had to go beyond what was normally considered safe and what was normally considered acceptable by society, because sometimes the future of your tribe depended upon the unknown, depended upon being able to be prepared for unknown, unforeseen dangers. And therefore, risk-taking, I think there's a gene for risk-taking. Twin studies show that. Twin studies show that if one twin has a lot of risk-taking in his personality, the other twin, more than likely, will also have risk-taking in their genome. So there's probably a gene for risk-taking.
I noticed that you didn't mention how technology will address one of the most urgent problems that we confront, and that's climate change.
Well, that's another book, okay?
Oh, another one that's coming, or that you've written?
Yeah, probably in the future I'll write about that. However, let me tell you one thing. There's no simple technical fix for climate change. Some people think there's a magic wand that you can simply wave and, shoot rockets into space that have soot in it to make the climate darker. Genetically modify algae so that algae eats up more carbon dioxide. But all of these have unintended consequences, because you are, of course, monkeying with the weather itself. If you make a mistake, you're creating a doomsday machine. And so that's why we do not yet have a simple technical fix for climate change. It's going to take a change in human behavior. But the problem is not technology, the problem is us. We have to have the political will to rein in climate change.
But what if there was technology that could, incentivize that will? Is that what we're missing?
Such as?
I don't know, something that made it easier, something that made it easier or more
well, there are
worthwhile, I guess, for people too.
There is a wild card called fusion. If you're a fan of Star Trek, you know that the Enterprise and everything is based on fusion power, not uranium, but hydrogen. And that's why the sun shines. Why does the sun shine? Because it's a fusion reactor. And in 2020, just 5 years from now, the French will have the first demonstration operating fusion plant in the world. And eventually it operates on seawater. The hydrogen from seawater is extracted, burnt to create helium, in the process releasing energy with almost no nuclear waste. Wow. It is the energy of the future, but it doesn't yet exist. But in 5 years' time, watch for it. There could be international headlines when the Europeans make fusion power before us.
Is there a technological advance that we have today that you would say, boy, I didn't see that coming?
No. We physicists have analyzed almost all harebrained possibilities. You'd be surprised the kinds of crazy ideas we've researched and have pretty much, ruled out all but the ones that you read about in science magazines.
Seriously, there's nothing we use that
No.
you'd say...
There's always the possibility of something from left field. However, it's not going to come from a revision of the laws of physics. We think we know the laws of physics out to the physics of stars, okay? All the way down to the physics of a virus. We understand the laws of physics very well. We have Einsteinian physics and we have quantum physics. The sum of these two is everything that we can possibly measure from stars and black holes all the way down to quarks. We see no deviation from our laws of physics. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be some wild invention that uses these laws of physics in novel ways, but we do have a theory of almost everything. It's called the Standard Model. It explains everything from quarks all the way to stars.
What's the greatest question that remains unanswered that you would like to see solved by the time your career is over?
Well, there are two great mysteries in all of science, the question of all questions. One is the origin of the universe itself, that is, where did the Big Bang come from? And the other one is the origin of intelligence, that is, how did our brain evolve from scratch? And these are the two great mysteries of the universe, and I work in both areas, okay? For the universe, I work in something called string theory. I'm the co-founder of string field theory, one of the main branches of string theory. String theory, we think, is the theory of everything. It'll give us an equation perhaps 1 inch long that will allow us to, quote, read the mind of God. These are Einstein's words, the theory of everything. We think we have it.
And so that is you've said, though, that you think you're on the verge of solving that.
Yeah, we haven't solved the theory completely. We think, for example, that our universe is a bubble. We live on the skin of the bubble, and the bubble's expanding. That's the Big Bang theory. But string theory says there are other bubbles out there, other universes that coexist with our universe. And when these universes bump into each other or peel off a baby universe, that's the Big Bang. And so the new paradigm shift is that the multiverse is a bubble bath. We no longer think of our universe as a bubble, but a bubble bath where bubbles constantly bump into each other, fission, parallel universes that are predicted by string theory. And then the next question you're going to ask me is Elvis Presley still alive in
No,
another
I'm
one of
not.
these universes? And the answer is you can't rule it out.
Okay, good to know. I have one last question for you because you're such a great communicator and an esteemed scientist. And when I've talked to other scientists, there seems to be this idea that if you're a serious scientist, you can't be a lively and interesting communicator, and that people in scientific circles feel like they may have to make a choice between that.
Well, that was the old way of looking at it, but I think with Stephen Hawking, my colleague, we have the idea that there is somebody who can write books, best-selling books, inspire movies, and still be a top-notch scientist. But yeah, there was this earlier opinion that scientists cannot coexist with popularization.
Right.
But you see, back in the 1990s, our machine, the Super Collider, was canceled. And it was supposed to be built outside of Dallas, and now it's in Switzerland, the Large Hadron Collider. And on the last day of hearings, one congressman asked a physicist, this Dallas machine, will we find God with your machine? If so, I will vote for it. He couldn't answer that question. He said, we will find the Higgs boson. All the jaws hit the floor in the United States Congress, $10 billion for another goddamn subatomic particle. Since then, we have asked the question, how should we have answered that question? Will we find God with your machine? Now, I would have answered it like this.
Yeah.
I would have said, God, by whatever signs or symbols you ascribe to the deity. This machine, the Super Collider, will take us as close as humanly possible to his greatest creation, Genesis. This is a Genesis machine. It'll recreate on a microscopic scale the most glorious event in the history of the universe, its birth. Instead, we said Higgs boson. And the machine was canceled.
And Switzerland has it.
And now it's in Switzerland.
And it's doing amazing work.
That's right.
Right?
But not by American physicists. They're
Right.
European physicists. They won the Nobel Prize for
Right.
the Higgs boson.
Do Americans know enough and care enough about science?
Well, that's a problem. You know, we have one of the worst educational systems known to science. Our students score dead last on every single math, international math, and science test. But you see, we have a secret weapon. We have a great university system, but we have another secret weapon that most countries have never heard of, most people have never heard of. It's called H-1B. It is America's secret weapon that keeps America's infrastructure intact. It is the genius visa. If you are a, quote, genius and you have a PhD in physics anywhere in the world, whoomp, you go right through immigration, right to Silicon Valley, where you create not just a job, you create industries in Silicon Valley.
Yes. But we're going to rely on the H-1B
We
for the
can't, because
future
now
of the country?
Chinese and Indian physicists, many of them are going back to China, going back to India. We cannot rely on H-1B forever.
Right.
There's a brain drain, and the brain drain is the Silicon Valley, but we can't rely on the brain drain forever. We have to have homegrown scientists. You realize that 50% of PhD physicists in America are foreign-born. And my university in New York, 100%, 100%, every grad student in physics is foreign-born.
Wow.
We don't have a single American-born
gosh.
PhD student. They're all from China, India, and around the world. They all want to go to Silicon Valley and become the next Zuckerberg and next billionaire.
Wow.
Okay? That shows you the deficiency of our educational system, that we're producing a generation. You know, we produce great people that can survive in the world of 1950. That is our educational system. There's only one problem. We don't live in 1950 anymore. That's the problem.
Dr. Kaku, thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you.